All right, so here's my presentation to show you another embedded code by the Zodiac on the envelope of the October 13th, 1969 letter that came with a bloody piece of the shirt of Paul Stein. I've already told you that this envelope information is in code. We went through the part where it says San Francisco. All right? So, in its right side up position, there's a dot. You read from right to left. It just looks like San Francisco, but if you look closer, you can see images. Images of a car, images of a shoe, all these types of things, right? So we go back in here. I broke it down for you. I showed you how this image over here to the left is actually the Presidio and shows his transgression to the Presidio. And then I showed you how he went to these two different points, this line. He was walking, saw a guy leaving, got to the cab, saw the blood coming out. The two dots were the two girls that were witnesses. And then how he made his way, he tried to make an escape down Maple, down Cherry, back over to Maple, then went back down Jackson, and then escaped to the golf course, to the upper side of the Presidio while a police car was coming and going up Aguilero Street, whatever that is. And that all coincides with the police reports and the witness reports. However, on September 29th, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, a guy in a bag over his head, wearing a costume with a Zodiac symbol, murdered Cecilia Shepard with a knife. And the boyfriend survived. The guy had staked the place out. He staked the place out so much that he knew he had plenty of time to go back to their car, which he parked behind, take out a marker, and actually scribble out a message that he lined up perfectly as another code. So he knew he was all alone, right? The suspect from that murder was the guy on the right. The suspect that evolved from the Paul Stein murder was the guy on the left. But because of the bloody shirt, everybody thought that the guy on the left was the Zodiac because the letter of October 13th, 1969 claimed responsibility for that murder. I had a theory that this guy who moved to the background was actually the Zodiac Killer, not the skinny guy, and that two people had to be at the scene of the crime during the time that the girls were and the guy were in the second story and the boy went to the phone and the girls were on the stairway. The real killer left. Charlie showed up, our suspect, and he realized that it was a crime scene and that he had to get his fingerprints out of there, so he tore the shirt and started wiping down the cab, which is what the evidence shows in terms of the witness statements. At Lake Berryessa, the testimony was that he was a handsome man with these amazing eyes and a natural part on the side of his hair. That is Charles Arthur Letch's high school senior photograph. All the other evidence I have matches up with him as the Zodiac. I believe that he is this guy on the right. That is the Zodiac. And that the other guy is the murderer of Paul Stein. Why would he send in a letter, claim responsibility? 1, they're in a group of people. 2, he almost got caught. 3, this is how they communicate with each other. 4, he knew if he claimed the murder that it would get published so that the others could see it because they communicate without calling each other because they didn't want anyone to be able to trace their communications. How do they communicate? Through code. One of the members, a guy, Albert Lee Terry Jr., apparently was great graphic artist. So on the envelope, he would use his ability to draw letters that form words like San Fran to actually be a code of Charlie's description of that evening and what happened. Right here, he says he's walking down the street, sees a guy leaving, gets to the cab. There's two witnesses and blood is coming out. There were two people there. That's his word. So you can either believe what people say in public, but it's more important what they say in private is probably more the truth, even though both could have some truth and some lies. So let's get to the point of what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is there's another code on this envelope, and it's in the area of the traditional place where it says, please rush to editor. You see that? The top one. Now, I'm telling you that there are images in that line that are very, very revealing. Here it is isolated. So, apparently, Charlie, after finally getting home and escaping, almost getting caught, being surprised by this very unusual event where a serial killer was about to be discovered because of another murderer killing somebody who was the driver of the cab that he took to the Presidio Heights after he got out, and he didn't know whether or not he had wiped all his fingerprints off, was a red alert. And they had to let everyone know what had happened. How does he tell them if they're not calling each other, they're not phoning each other, and they're not actually all in the same place? The same way they've been doing it. Get a letter published, embed some coding. So what he does is, at this time, he also has an epiphany that his ass could have got caught. And his co-partner, the woman living with him, Ellen, I'm not going to give her last name right now, but we all know who she is, right? E. In all the codes, she's E, right? The woman he loves, the woman he's killing for, amongst other things, other problems that he has, right? That it could be over for them. Had he gotten caught, it was over. Everything they had was over. And he decides that he's now mortal. It was such a moving experience that he has Albert Lee Terry Jr. put a marriage proposal on the envelope. So this is it isolated, right? I'm going to go back to the full letter. So this is the envelope. I haven't even gotten to the letter yet. Please rush to editor. All right? Now I'm going to go back to the isolated version and show you exactly what I'm talking about. So if you look after the L, that is a well, right? That is a sperm well. That also happens to be Moby Dick. Now, I'm not getting into all of the puns or whatever this crazy person is talking about, but the next figure you see is two people kissing, making love, right? And October is actually mating season for whales. It's from like October to sometime in April or May. Whales actually travel to a warmer climate to mate, right? So the next symbol is them going somewhere, right? So he's saying it's mating season, let's get together, let's travel somewhere warm, let's get away from all this. And then the next figure, I believe, is him. On his knees, with his head down, holding something in his hand, a gift, a surprise he wants to give to her. All right? So we move on. He's asking her to coil with him like a snake around a cane. That's what that is. To get as tight as they possibly can. With his nymph. See the figure down here at the bottom? It's classic. It's what Bond uses in every film for the sexy girls. It's the nymph pose. It's the sexy girl pose, right? To cuddle with him before he, Charlie, this large man with the bow-legged gait, which was described at Presidio by the girls and the responding police officers, that there was a man walking down the street with a wobbly gait. That's him. That's an image of him. To get with him before he morphs into this other person, the killer, Genghis Khan. That's who that is, Genghis Khan, right? And then where it says to, this is to her, right? If you notice up here at the top, it goes away a little bit, right? You will see that that T is actually a flying dragon. Just take a minute, look at it, and then that is a man riding the head of the dragon with a woman in his arms grabbing hold of her, right? He's going to swoop her up on a magic dragon and take her away on a magic trip. What you see below that is a wedding ring or an engagement ring. This message is to E, Ellen, the biggie, right? Who, for some reason, must be on the Enterprise, right? He's saying, when you, E, get back to NAS Alameda, because that's what this is. That's the runway, the T over here. That's the dock area where the aircraft carriers are. That's an aircraft carrier. When you return back to base, before the Klingons show up, right? That is a Klingon ship, which is the police. Let's hook up and dive in. Don't even think about it. After this incident, he had Albert Lee put a marriage proposal on the envelope. If the killer is putting a marriage proposal on the envelope in code to his woman, who he's living with at the time, on Grove in San Francisco, they were there, I think, 66, 67, 68, 69, all the way up to 70, right? You could probably believe that the rest of the information he put in here is true and that it's him. Again, please rush to Ellen or Ellen. That's what this is. It is whale mating season and Moby Dick wants to get with you and go to somewhere warm. I am on my hands and knees asking you to curl around me like a snake on a cane. My beautiful and wonderful nymph. This large man with the wild gait, before I turn into Genghis Khan, the murderer that you know I am. Let me grab you and get on a magic dragon and take you to a magic land where we can be married. When you return to port at NAS Alameda, Alen, before the Klingons arrive, the police, hook up with me and just dive in. Don't think about it. That's Genghis Khan. There's a magic dragon. There's a sperm whale. There's Moby Dick. I am not making this stuff up, okay? The guy on the left is not the Zodiac. He's the person who murdered Paul Stein. The guy on the right, the person of interest from Lake Berryessa, is this handsome young man right here, Charles Arthur Lech, class of 53, St. Ignatius High School, San Francisco. His cohort, his love of his life, the person who was living with him at that time on Grove Avenue is E, Ellen, who apparently somewhere in the military is attached to NAS Alameda and the biggie, which is the USS Enterprise. Hence the Klingon ship to indicate the police, the magic dragon. He's on the dragon grabbing her with the marriage ring. That's him. He has a bow legs and a gait. He's a big man. That is actually a drawing of Charlie morphing into Genghis Khan, right? That's Elin, his nymph, his pretty woman. He wants her to wrap herself around him like a snake in a cane. That's him on his knees, asking her if she would go with him to a nice place away from all of this, to get together, to make love, and to mate. That's it. And that's all. For far too long, Charlie, the real Zodiac, has been sitting in the background while everything else on the planet Earth has been getting attention. Either you want to wrap this case up or you don't. Bottom line, I've given you all the information you need. And any more you want, all you got to do is ask me.